Ah, there we go. Well, should I go or do you want to go? Obscurigami being this show, the show where we talk about obscure things. Did I tell you about the catchphrase, or what do you call it? Not a catchphrase. What's another word for a catchphrase?
Tagline?
Yeah, it's a
slogan.
Slogan. Did I tell you about the slogan that Hannah came up with for this show?
No.
She came up.
Please regale
I
me.
didn't even mean to.
She came up with the slogan "pointlessly educational," which I think pretty well sums up a lot of what we're about here at Obscurigami Networks LLC.
I feel like that pretty much sums up my entire education.
But yeah, they're obscure topics. We're educating them on you, but you're not really gonna gain anything from being educated about these, likely.
Well, welcome to Obscurigami, a pointlessly educational audio journal
of obscure things.
I'm Ben,
And I'm Thomas.
and today I want to introduce us into the world of white-collar crime. I picked this topic before I had really started reading a book called The Godfather. You may have heard of it. They made an obscure film
Yes.
based on the novel.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do an episode about that one day, because
One day.
it really is.
But those
underrated
two things
gem.
in conjunction really got me thinking about crime and the nature of good and evil and what constitutes that. So this particular criminal was not involved with the mafia or organized crime in any way, to my knowledge. His name is John Ruffo, and John Ruffo was an American business executive who ran away with about $300 million as part of a scheme that I will now tell you about. So he had some legitimate business holdings, and he became involved with another businessman who had been an executive at Philip Morris.
How recent is this?
This took place. The crime itself was prosecuted in 1996, and that is when Ruffo disappeared. So he has been missing since 1996. The two of them came up with a scheme to basically convince banks that Philip Morris was developing a product that didn't exist. It was kind of a cigarette that generated less smoke.
Interesting.
So they created documents to the effect of saying that Philip Morris was creating this product and that they were the agency through which Philip Morris was channeling the funds. But in reality, Philip Morris was not doing this.
Right.
And it was over 15 institutions that were providing money to this cause.
Yeah.
And it amounted to about $350 million. Of course, they were caught. But the interesting thing to me is that after the trial and he was convicted, he was last seen withdrawing some money from an ATM near an airport, near John F. Kennedy Airport, and his car was found there, and they have surveillance footage of him withdrawing the money. But since then, that was in 1998, he has not been seen.
He's not been seen. Wow.
And his car was abandoned at an airport, so people think, well, maybe he
managed to
he took off.
get away. He made it to
Maybe
Panama,
he made it
to
through
Bolivia,
through the gate.
and he's living the high life. In how much money did you say how much money he withdrew?
That is a very good question. So of the $350 million or so, there's about 40 to 50 million that's unaccounted for. He could have that money with him,
Right. Yeah.
or he might have some smaller chunk.
Right.
No one really knows. And
Yeah.
this has been since 1998, so
Yeah.
he's had about 20 years, and he's successfully evaded law enforcement
Yeah. Wow.
everywhere.
Interesting.
So it's possible he's dead.
Right.
It's been long enough
Yeah.
that that's a possibility. But he's been on the U.S. Marshals most wanted list for all that time. So he's a high priority criminal
Yeah.
that has not been caught.
Wow.
An unusual thing.
I wonder how that stacks up 30 or 40 million, presuming he has it. I wonder how that stacks up against other large-scale financial crimes that people have gotten away with, or at least, people who remain at large or uncaught.
Yeah, this is definitely a pretty major one.
This is probably,
based on
I'm
my
assuming,
research,
must be one of the larger
This
ones.
is definitely in the top tier of like white collar crimes.
Right.
People got away with,
Right.
allegedly.
Besides, I mean, assumedly, there's probably some level of white collar crime where some business executive, financial person has been skimming money off of some account somewhere for like his 40 years and maybe he's skimmed millions of dollars over the course of his life and has never been caught. But in terms of people like who took a chunk and just tried to like skedaddle, that's probably one of the larger. Even so, you would have to be like, it's hard to hide $40 million.
Right.
I would
I'm inclined to
imagine.
think that he doesn't have it.
Right.
That the money was either spent as part of his getaway plan
Yeah.
or dispersed in some other way.
You think if you knew you were going to be pulling a stunt like that, you'd have some plans or backup plans.
Right. And he was caught around 1996 and then disappeared around 1998.
Right.
So during that time, he was on trial and he actually was sentenced to prison and didn't show up for prison. Which is another thing, like the difference between white collar crime versus blue collar crime.
Yeah.
They would never be able to get away with that.
Yeah.
In a more, I don't know, smaller scale crime or domestic crime or.
Yeah. What was it? Do you remember in that Robert Durst? I think he pulled that, but and then that was a case of like not white collar crime,
Right.
but someone who was in the white collar world. He was a very high profile figure, so he was able to kind of like do
and
this.
I guess if you can afford bail,
Right.
then
You have that opportunity, theoretically. Yeah.
and his bail was set at an unusually high figure. This is Ruffo that I switched back to talking about. His bail was set unusually high, and several of his relatives mortgaged their homes to like get him out on bail. So I wonder if it was indeed a profitable venture.
Yeah.
Because it was so expensive to. I guess he has the satisfaction of knowing that he got away with it, but he's definitely. I can't say for sure, but it seems like he's not living the high life somewhere.
Yeah. He's probably He's probably at most surviving. And then on top of that, you have the anxiety of being
Hunted.
Or just at least knowing that you have to stay concealed for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It would be not an ideal existence.
Yeah. But it's interesting. A lot of the other people on the list are wanted for violent crimes.
Right. Yeah.
He's one of the few executive white-collar criminals that's on the list.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a stock that they rotate, and as they get pushed towards the higher part of the list, they get more attention from investigators. They're higher priority because they want to keep the list. They don't want the list to remain static. Obviously, they want it to be updated frequently because they're catching people.
Right.
Because it's a public announcement.
Public list.
But
Yeah.
another interesting thing is that their website is not very modern.
The
U.S. Marshals.
The U.S. Marshal, most wanted.
Yeah, it was a very basic HTML
Do
kind of website.
Each of the agencies kind of like is there an FBI most
Yeah, the
wanted?
FBI
That's
has
a
the
separate.
most wanted list too.
I wonder what gets you onto one list versus the other list. Like, what do you have to do to get onto the Marshal list but not the FBI list? I wonder.
That is a very good question.
Who
That I do
decides?
not have the answer to.
Well, the Marshals probably decide, but
Yeah. And I mean, clearly the FBI were involved in his case because they froze a lot of his assets when he attempted to flee.
right.
So yeah, I'm not sure why he's on one list and not on the other.
I'm amazed when we learn about whether it's a Gregor McGregor or a John Ruffo. how these confidence men, how sort of simplistic their schemes tend to be. Mm-hmm. Like, you think you would conceal these things within layers of like obscurity, or I guess maybe the ones who get away with it do, and that's why they get away with it. But a lot of this stuff seems to come down to, well, they just lied to somebody, and that person just trusted them, and they didn't like fake, or I mean, was there more?
Well, there was definitely documentation.
Right, there was documentation that they faked. Right,
and it wasn't like he just appeared and was doing business with these. He had been doing business
right.
legitimately, or we presume legitimately, for a while.
Yeah.
So he had a bit of a base to build off of before.
What makes you do that?
What makes you abandon your base?
A bit, like, was he about to head into a tailspin? Like, did he think had he been wheeling and dealing for a while and think that things were going to catch up with him? Like, why, if you're a successful businessman, would you, I don't know, the psychology of crime is strange a lot of times, but like, do you just realize one day that like you could just fake some documents and get $350 million, and then like the draw is too insatiable? I think a lot of times crime fits into our, blue collar crime. It's kind of easy to slot into a certain category because we can attribute it to certain sort of like, almost as a symptom of certain kinds of social need or something.
Yeah.
If somebody robs a bank, they probably
acted out of some sort of desperation.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Or at least that's the narrative that we seem to like want to believe. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I haven't studied bank robberies.
I'm sure it varies.
But with white collar crime, you often have this individual who's already at least a little bit successful. And so it's a little bit more difficult to kind of easily understand what motivated them.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. Like if it's like Frank Abagnale kind of mentality where it's like he wants to play the system.
Yeah.
And see, how much he can get away with.
Right. But even for him, for someone like him, it almost makes sense because he's starting at the bottom. He doesn't have that much to lose, and he's working his way up the ladder, so to speak.
Right.
But for somebody already at the top, you start to wonder, well, were they in some kind of desperation and we just didn't know it, and they felt like this was the only opportunity they had? Did they just get cocky and think that they were very successful and smart and could probably just pull it off? And why not gain $350 million? Or, are they just sad individuals who are unfulfilled by their current money and success, and pulling a stunt like that is just some kind of, it's not about the money, it's just some kind of game.
Yeah.
Or
maybe it's some kind of way to show that they're better than the system.
Right.
Maybe it's a challenge.
Yeah.
That, only they can, because he was trying to cover it up by making interest payments on the loans. And so it doesn't seem likely that anybody would have caught it. Like, it took years for people to catch it.
Right. Yeah.
So it wasn't an exceedingly obvious crime. And if it hadn't been for some executive in a bank in Japan somewhere, maybe nobody would have caught it for much longer.
Yeah.
So clearly he wasn't an idiot. But yeah, it's just an interesting story, and it's mostly interesting because of what's not there, like all the blank pieces that we don't have, because he was never caught.
He was never caught.
Know.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really able to find any interviews with his business partner to find out what motivated them to attempt it. John Ruffo. There will be a picture of him in the show notes.
Yeah, if you know anything about the whereabouts of John Ruffo, you can call the U.S. Marshal Service.
Hotline.
U.S. Marshal is very weird to me. Maybe that, I feel like that would almost be a topic for an episode. I just like
obscure law enforcement agencies.
I always forget that they exist, and then every time I'm reminded, I'm like, oh yeah, what?
I always remember.
What do they do?
I always remember them whenever I think about law enforcement on planes, because I feel like that's one of their jurisdictions.
That's one of their, yeah.
And maybe that's why he's on their list, because he left on a plane, presumably, or from an airport. This is the portion of the show where we further our pointless education by clicking the random button on Wikipedia. And sometimes we find out about really interesting things.
Sometimes less interesting.
Sometimes we find things that we can't understand. And most of the time we just find things in foreign languages that we can't pronounce.
Here's an interesting one. It's a bit of a stub article, so not a whole lot to talk about here.
Ooh, a stub.
Or I don't know if this is a stub article or just a very brief topic. But what we have today is the African Zion Baptist Church. It's a historic Baptist church at 4104 Malden Drive in Malden, Kanawha County, West Virginia. Go check it out if you live nearby. Mm-hmm. It's a one-story frame structure built atop a stone foundation. It has a gable roof topped by a wooden bell tower. This is considered the mother church of African American Baptists in West Virginia, many of whom migrated here after the American Civil War and Reconstruction. Among its noted members were Father Lewis Rice, founder of the church and leader of the early African American community in Kanawha Valley of West Virginia, and Booker T. Washington. It was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1974. And
fascinating.
It looks like a pretty standard old white church building.
The color of the church is white.
Right, yes.
It would not be considered a white church.
No.
Since it is an African Zion Baptist church.
That's correct.
Yes.
The outside, it is painted white. Thank you for clarifying that. That could be a... the coordinates are 38 degrees, 17 feet, 58 inches north, 81 degrees, 33 feet, 26 inches west. So pop that into your GPS.
You can head right there.
Head right there. Check out the African Zion Baptist Church, September 1979.
So we have a time travel machine too?
Yeah.
To get back to...
I guess that's when the photo was taken. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Presumably it's still there? I don't know.
Let's
Google map it and see if we can see a current...
Hey, that's a good idea. All right, we're taking the address. We're Command-C, that's copy. Go to maps.
If you're on a PC,
.google.com.
you might try the control.
Yeah, that would be control.
Look at that.
All right, let's zoom down here. We're going to grab the little man, drop him in the street, zoom down into street view level. Here we are. And what do you know?
There it is. It still stands, according to Google.
It's a pretty... oh, look at this little house here right beside it.
Is that the vicarage?
I don't know. It looks maybe like it's newer than the church.
The
it's right by the fast check.
Fast check?
Fast check.
Cool. It looks very well manicured and well maintained.
It does look like it's well maintained.
It doesn't look like it's changed much since 1979. But the landscape around it is looks like some sort of apartments across the street. If you live in one of those apartments, be sure to drop us a line and let us know.
Take a photo of you listening to the podcast in front of the church.
Now that we've given everyone on the internet the coordinates to where you live.
And email it to us or tweet at us or something.
We'll be very excited.
I'm at Thomas Flight on Twitter. What are you on Twitter, Ben?
I have many Twitters.
Many Twitters.
None of which I will disclose on the air.
Okay, all right.
For the purposes of my anonymity.
He likes to say it. Ben is anonymous on the Twitters.
Well, I wish I had more to say about it, other than it's quite an average looking building for
you can
having such an incredible...
a little bit see inside from the street view.
Oh. What's in there?
Well,
it was raining
you
when
can
the
just
photograph
kind of
was
see
taken.
in and out through the other windows on the side.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite obscure, I have to say.
Quite obscure indeed.
It's a pretty obscure random Wikipedia article we have there. I want to, we haven't really done this before, but now that the podcast is blowing up, we've probably doubled our listener base from 10 to 20.
Growth definitely demands that we take some steps.
I don't want to coerce anyone or suggest that people take actions that they wouldn't otherwise be motivated to take on their own. But just a reminder, on iTunes, you can leave podcast reviews.
Well, that's true. We've never asked people to review this podcast before.
So that's a thing you can do. I don't know why you'd want to leave a review of this podcast. I wouldn't certainly want to ask anyone to, because they would certainly all be negative.
Right.
One or 2 stars. But
you're letting people know that they have the option.
Just reminding people, if they do have, brutal, constructive, or not constructive criticisms that they would like to leave in the review box.
I think that would be interesting to hear.
Yeah.
We don't hear much from our detractors.
No.
Other than I hear from you from time to time.
We are our own detractors.
It's true. We don't really need... What would be the opposite of a fan base? A hate group? What do you call somebody who's like the opposite of a fan? Like someone who hates something.
I don't know. A hater. Message to all the haters. Leave us reviews. That'll teach them. No,
well done.
I'm very interested to see the reception, which is usually crickets. It's always crickets. But the latest episode I put up, what was it about? Oh, Salvage 1.
Oh, yes. I actually did get some feedback on that from one of our our true fans.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Because that one we had, that was an interesting one because we just had this non sequitur rant / rabbit trail at the end that was like 10 or 15 minutes long that I kind of left in. That was quite funny. When I was editing it, I was laughing.
What did we talk about? I'll have to go back and
I don't really remember. It was like roughly related. We were imagining scenarios in which we would,
cast Andy Griffith
in something. I don't remember what all it was, but we were just talking off topic for quite a while. And it was kind of the first time we had done that in the show. I left it in. It's also like a 45-minute episode, which is
it's really amazing that our bar is set so low.
Right.
That we can still manage to get off topic in a 30-minute podcast.
Yeah. Well, that one's 45 minutes, which I think is maybe our longest episode. So I could have just cut it out, but I didn't. We'll see. Well, let us know. Leave us feedback. Do you like it if we rant off topic for a little while or
Please
not?
let us know.
Probably won't.
We would definitely love the opportunity to rant off topic more because I think that's what we do best.
Yeah. I don't know that we're going to do anything differently based on your feedback, but it might make us feel better or worse about ourselves. And,
And that's always entertaining.
Right. Yeah.
You could have cut out the rant and released a special edition episode.
Oh, right. We could keep that around for our Patreon supporters once we have a Patreon.
Right.
Interesting. That's an interesting idea.
See? Strategery.
Well, let us know if you like the rants, then we'll start cutting them out. Then we'll know how to motivate people to give us money.
Tell us how to manipulate you into opening your wallets to us.
Tell them about the email, Ben.
What? Oh. info@obscurigami.com. You can email it there if you don't feel like leaving a public review.
Right.
If you feel embarrassed to say negative things in public,
email it to us, and then we will post a review and copy and paste what you said into the...
Also, obscurigami.com is our website.
Right.
You can find other episodes of the show there. Subscribe in iTunes, Stitcher.
And on YouTube as well.
We are on YouTube. We are in Google Play. You can find us all over the place.
Wherever you like to listen, mostly.
Are we on Spotify? Spotify has podcasts.
I don't think we're on Spotify. I feel like I'm not sure how to get on there. I think I looked to try to see how to.
Yeah.
But they might just pull their
they're very curated.
They might pull their podcast directory from some other source.
Because I've looked on there for some of my favorite podcasts, and they have not been there.
Yeah.
So.
But we're on the Google Play podcasts.
Yeah. You don't want Spotify.
Yeah, you don't want that. Email me and I'll send you the MP3s.
Give us a call.
Give us a call. We'll just say as much as we can remember about any of the episodes.
Yeah, we'll get on the phone and reenact your favorite episode.
Yeah. Likely
For a
abridged.
small fee.
Yeah, for a small fee.
Payable in Bitcoin.